Walking into Retirement, an unusual podcast about finding purpose, meaning, and balance after a busy working life, with David Ailing-Smith and Peter Taylor. Exploring the emotional, psychological, and practical realities of modern retirement through a series of reflective conversations undertaken whilst walking scenic routes across the UK.
Here we are, Daz, on top of the Malvern Hills. Well, nearly on top of the Malvern Hills. How are you doing?
Good. I think it's a walk I'd like to have done 30 years ago before I retired because it was very steep.
It was.
But a beautiful view. We're looking across now to the Severn Valleys and the Black Mountains in Wales, and it's a beautiful scene. And did you know you can see 3 cathedrals from here, Peter?
Oh, you're off already. Yeah. Welcome to Staggering into Retirement with Daz and Peter. 3 cathedrals, can you, Daz?
Yeah, you can see 3 cathedrals. And the Malvern Hills is a beautiful bit of Precambrian rock that extends 14 kilometres north of the spa town of Malvern. And it spans 3 counties. Actually, we're on the border of 3 counties.
All right, I know, Daz, you've got lots of facts, and you do want to share. You told me something on when you leave the car park. We left the coffee shop where we were. It's an incredibly steep path or road to get up to start with.
Yes.
Where they used to have donkeys taking you up there, but there were no donkeys today.
No.
But you were telling me something about people who've walked here.
Well, there's some famous people that have lived here. Edward Elgar, the famous British composer, was born here, buried not too far away. But I think my fun fact is that C.S. Lewis walked here with JR Tolkien. I like the fact they both got initials. They feel like England cricketers. England cricketers do that as well. They have initials in front of their name. So C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, walked here with J.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. And in fact, Tolkien credited the White Mountains of Gondor to the Malvern Hills. So there we are. That's my fun fact for you.
Peter now has a very glazed expression on his face because he is not by any means a fan of Tolkien. But I understand the
it has cultural significance for many of us, Peter.
For many people, I understand that.
Yes.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, the view is amazing.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
It is beautiful.
But I know there is something bothering you.
Well,
do you want to get it off your chest now?
Yeah, why not? So, as you know, this podcast is called Walking into Retirement.
Yeah.
And I don't like the word retirement. You know that, and people who know me know
You've been difficult.
I've been thinking about why do I not like the word retirement, and so I think as a way of framing what we're going to talk about, we need to define this a bit better. And you know how in our world, when you go through transformations and you have projects, if you're going to do something new for the first time, there's a trick really where you invent a word. You invent a word to describe it because that word's never been used before, and you can imbue that word with whatever you want. Whereas existing words are imbued with all the things that those words actually mean.
Well, yeah, I'm a supporter of that because I created the word Elderescence to win an argument with my wife Juliet. So yes.
There we go. So far you're with me?
I'm with you so far.
So I think that retirement is the wrong word for what we are going through right now. And so think about, as if you think about the lifespan of a human being, you're a child, and then you go through something called adolescence, and adolescence being that sort of that transition between childhood and adulthood, and it's full of hormones, new realities, new adventures, new discoveries, wisdom, context, place in the world. And I like that as a phrase to describe a transition of a person from one state to another. There's another word which is not so well known, matrescence, which is the making of a mother. It's the word used to describe the process that women go through when they give birth, which again is full of emotional, hormonal, psychological components. And so for me, I think we need a word like that to describe the transition from full-time working life to being older. Now I started to struggle now because
but I think what you're trying to tell the listeners and myself is that you are going through a hormonally driven difficult period in your life.
Again, yes, that's right. So I offer you the word elderescence.
Elderescence.
So think about matrescence, think about adolescence. So the process of the making of an elder. And the word elder I quite like, and thank you, Dale, for sort of helping me with this one, because I was thinking about seniors, matures, and they've all got negative connotations for me as well.
Yeah.
So you think about the way you use the word elder, I mean, it has spiritual significance in some faiths, but you know how you don't disrespect your elders. You don't say don't disrespect your elders, do you? There's something about that.
All right, so we're on the cusp of this is a brand new word.
Well, it's a word that I did invent, but I Googled it, and there are a couple of people out there in the Tinternet who have adopted it as well for the same reasons. And there's an Elderescence Academy, I think, in California, and its aims, as far as I recall, are to age gracefully. It's all to do with the process of aging. So I think retirement's the wrong word. Think about perhaps retirement is to a wedding what elderescence is to a marriage. And so I can deal with retirement as a set piece event, a milestone, if you like. But the process of maturing as an older person outside of work, I think needs a bigger word to describe all the emotional, psychological, mental changes and hormonal, yes, Peter, that one goes through. So actually, I think this is about aging. I think this is about the psychology of aging.
Okay. I can't agree with you, because otherwise you could have a little temper tantrum sort of stomping around Malvern Hills. All right, okay, let's go with that. But there is a word, senescence, isn't there? Which just means to get old.
Yes.
You're not going for that
one. Well, no, I think that's the process of aging, which
okay.
That's a word that describes a lot of the negative things that I think that maybe what's happening when one retires is you start contemplating aging. And I think that's perhaps for some people why it's such a loaded phrase. So, trying to link back to what we said about the famous people that lived it, like C.S. Lewis famously wrote about, a portal in the wardrobe where the protagonist stepped through into Narnia. I wonder whether retirement is actually like a portal, that you get retired and then you're in a different land, and it can be wonderful and it can be terrible. And I think it's a deeply individual and personal experience for people. So a lot of what we talk about won't resonate with people because that's not how they see it. But it's something about aging, but it's also something about opportunity. And last time we spoke, I talked about the sort of the dichotomies that I thought about in terms of having, people who've had very, very sort of long, busy careers which have been incredibly satisfying, and then not having that. So, for example, when one's busy at work, there are a lot of things you'd like to do that you put off. And when you're retired, you've got time to do them. But of course, that then means you have a choice. And it made me think about, in fact, one of our listeners keyed me up on this and said that one of the things she was concerned about was that choice might mean she actually might lose her freedom because, for example, she might need to go back and look after her parents. I mean, our generation sometimes called the sandwich generation, isn't it? Where it has, it has parents who are partially, we care for, and grandchildren perhaps that we partially care for as well. And so outside of the strictures of work, there's choice. And I think there's a tyranny in choice that some people are very, very wary of and worried about, because it means that they may be obliged through conscience, through morality, through need for money to do things that actually they don't want to do. And actually, while they were working, they didn't have to make those decisions.
Okay, I like that. So tyranny of choice is an interesting phrase. So I think that's the crux of really where we started this whole thing off, because if we reflect back, to our grandparents, there was no tyranny of choice for most of them. It was you work, you top, you are retired.
Yep.
And when you're retired, you relax. If I think of my grandfather or other grandfather, they read the paper, they walked the dog, they went to the pub. They got together with their friends and played darts and stuff like that. But that was, it was very clear. It was very kind of black and white. You hit 65, you stopped. And, unfortunately, a lot of them didn't live that long afterwards because it's funny. Now, today's world, our world, for many, many people, not everybody, but for many people, it is a much wider transitional period where they have these sort of choices. So, okay. Well, why don't we carry on walking? And I think we're going to come back to, I think we need to talk about elders, if I'm honest, because you're pivoting this entire word that you've made up that somebody else has already used. Interesting.
Parallel evolution happens all the time.
Okay, fine. All right. Have you copyrighted it? We'll get it in a blog.
No, that's why I need you to do that.
Okay, fine. All right. We're going to carry on walking up because we're not right at the top of the hill yet. I was just taking a breather, really. And then we'll come back, and I think we need to explore elders, because I've got in my mind what an elder is. I think a lot of listeners will. So I'm interested to see how you pivot that to what we're talking about.
And I also like to talk about some of the dilemmas associated with retirement, because I think that might give us some framing of some of the content of our walk. So one of our listeners very gently berated me for meandering, I think, on the last podcast, and wanted a list, like the list. So
you were, our previous incarnation as the Squidders, we did have you did like a list, didn't you? But in list, is this going to work? I don't know. It might work with a list.
Maybe go freeform.
Well, okay, fine. There we go. All right. Okay. Oh, that's good. We're on a nice bench now, looking down over Malvern. It looks very, very pretty from this distance.
A spa town,
pretty.
You know, Peter. It's famous for
really?
spa waters.
Really?
One of the reasons it developed in the Victorian era. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, that North Hill was quite challenging, wasn't it?
It was. That's why we were sitting down now, and we waited a few minutes to get our breath back.
Have you noticed that the other people walking today all look as though they're retired?
And they didn't seem to be out of breath either.
No. It is a Monday morning, though, isn't it? So
yeah. Well, you've had quite a while on your peloton, so I think you're fitter than I am at the moment. I haven't played squash for many months due to my wife's injury, so I'm out of condition. So these walks are good for me.
There we go.
Yeah. Anyway, I think the debate was going to be, what do you mean by elder? Because you say elder, I mean, I immediately go to, I guess, sort of some of the indigenous groups on the planet who respect their elders. I was in between gasping and getting my breath. I mentioned that there was a wonderful thing, which is where I think in Japanese companies that they allow some old people to just stay at work. They don't have to do anything and they get paid. And I said that sounds like a perfect next career step for me. But so I think I think explore this, because there is a particular idea that people have when you talk about elders.
Yes. Well, I just thinking about what you just said about older people at work. Actually, I feel quite strongly that it's a resource that organisations and societies actually don't take advantage of. So, if you think, younger people,
B&Q, and Asda greeters.
Well, I think it's quite clever. Younger people, generalise. I think the term is their brains are more elastic. They can learn more quickly. They've got energy, enthusiasm, optimism. We've got a big plane coming over.
Okay.
You hear the phrase, it's a young man's game or young woman's game to work in a high pressure industry. But of course, as people at work age, they gain wisdom. They've had experience, and that's a very powerful component of working life and life as a whole, which I think when blended with energy, vim, vigour, youthful exuberance is a fantastic combination. You sometimes see it in sports teams, don't you, where you have sort of an older player pulling the strings in midfield, and the younger guys are pacey up front and all that sort of thing. And I think at work it's a missed opportunity, I think, for lots of organisations. But anyway, you were asking me about elders.
I was asking you about elders, so we get back to that now.
Well, I think if the definition of elder is it has got a spiritual meaning to it for lots of cultures and for lots of religions as well. But it also, I think, means a wise older person in the community. I like the tone of the word elder versus older, and I think also that sort of that I was joking really, but the thought of having elderescence as being sort of a multiple year journey into becoming an elder, with growth, adventure, choices, recognitions, and maybe even enlightenment. I mean, if there's a spiritual component to being an elder, maybe there is something that you learn about being on this planet by becoming older, if you choose to look hard enough. So I think it's a worthy word that I think actually could be used in the context of leaving work. But it's a process. It's not an event, as I said before.
Okay. Wisdom in the community. That sounds interesting. It's not care in the community, it's wisdom in the community. That's what you're advocating, yes?
It could be both.
Yes.
It could be both. But, if we talk about the CSUS portal from retiring into,
Well, you say we're talking about it. You were talking about it, really.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. But I'm getting fond of this metaphor. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay, fine.
I think one of the reasons it's tricky, well, it's very individualistic, as we said before, but I think one of the reasons it's tricky for people is that I think it has been for me, a sort of a recognition that it's a milestone towards aging. And, in business terms, if you think about the way we've used KPIs all our lives, I think retirement is a leading indicator to death.
A leading indicator to death.
Well, I bet the statistics say,
and that, folks, is the title of the new book. Leading
more
indicator
people,
to death.
a higher proportion of people who die are retired than aren't. So, you know, I think it's a thing. I think it's a milestone on the way to aging. And I think that's one of the reasons people have problems with it, because it is about contemplating your own mortality.
I need to check that. It's an interesting statistic you just came out with.
I made it up. I did.
Well, I'm going to check that when I get back, actually. Is that true? But it logically it should be true.
But again, it's one of these dilemmas, which I love it. I mean, leaving work for some people literally saves their lives, I think, because of the pressure and the stress associated with a lot of work.
Well, you're much happier.
And you know, I mean, look at the number of, as you think about men who have heart attacks at work. I mean, it's just, it's a thing, isn't it? That actually the pressure at work can shorten people's lives, and it can actually kill them.
I think,
Well, I'm just thinking that. But so when you're not working, that pressure comes off, which is just wonderful. But you then actually you're in a position to contemplate your mortality over a longer time period.
Oh, that's true.
And I think for some people that's a bit of a burden.
Well, the observation I was going to make, actually, which came to me then, is that, and I, not just you, but other people, I think there is a very interesting pre-transition period. Yeah, you had an idea that you were going to, I'm using the word retire. You were going to go through the process of Elderescence. Go through the portal.
Yeah.
I didn't like the line Rich the Wardrobe either.
I didn't.
No. But there was a period of time which I think you found it very difficult to maintain what's needed to be maintained at work. And I've seen it in other people when they know they've got like a year to go, they're just waiting for the equity.
Oh, really? Do you think I stopped trying?
No, I don't think you stopped trying. I just think you found it harder to maintain the level of your investment in the business. Increasingly, because you know the clock is ticking and it's going to end. You know that whatever you're doing is going to be taken over and replaced by other people. You know, it's the bucket of water syndrome. We know that when we leave, actually, we'll be remembered for a while, but after that,
where does the bucket of water come in?
Well, the fact that you can take some water out of a bucket of water and it looks exactly the same afterwards.
Oh, I see.
You have removed something, but okay, all right. The level goes down. but the point is, the bucket of water looks the same. I'm sure it's a very famous analogy.
Okay.
That I probably could.
I think that was a good one. If you'd explained that better, I think that'd have been brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Well, in the edit, you know what's possible here. I'm going to sound fantastic. I mean, the wind won't be on the mic anymore,
that's true.
Mysteriously, but
True.
But no, I think that's true. There's almost there's that almost. Maybe it's early onset Elderescence. Is that possible?
I don't know.
I've thrown him now.
Yes. Well, I still want to talk about these dilemmas because I think they represent for me chapters in the book.
Yeah.
Because I think each one of these, the wonderful things that are possible through going through the portal, I think actually cause dilemmas as well for people in different ways. And so, someone mentioned to me about the challenge of perhaps after work being obliged to enter into a situation of being a carer. And so if you think about when you retire, that wonderful liberating, exhilarating moment when you think you can pursue your hobbies, your interests, all those passions that you haven't had the time to do. But then when you reflect, perhaps when you've got the time, you've got choices to make, and you actually still may not be able to do them because of other pressures on your time. And I think there are hidden realities that come out during retirement. I think also, we talked about this last time, about maybe retirement can teach us something about work and how to enjoy work, in the sense of, when it's gone, you miss certain things. And so what are those things, and try and enjoy them more while you're working. And I've also been thinking about, we talked a lot about the importance of making mistakes at work, in that's where you learn.
Yep.
And
you've encouraged me to make many mistakes. Yeah.
You've done very well at that particular achievement, Peter. But I was thinking about regrets, thinking about how, as you sort of look back on your life, or as you contemplate the things you've done, there are mistakes from which you grow, and then there are regrets. And I think regrets are much, much harder to deal with than mistakes. And so I think there's a lesson there about, as you contemplate what you're going to do with the time you've got in your retirement. For me, one of the lists I'd love to make with you is, don't have any regrets. Just make sure that those things you want to do, you do.
Okay. Well, on that, I think we should pause. It's getting a little bit windy up here. And I'm conscious of our listeners not having to listen to the wind in the mics. I don't know how bad it is. Let's move further down the hill and continue this conversation.
Very good.
Okay, here we go. A little bit lower down the hill. I mean, I'm trying to keep you on our journey here, because we are going to describe the walks as well.
Yeah.
So if people want to do them or look up where we are, we're going
Yeah.
to share some photos on the website,
Yeah.
which will be available by the end of this month, March.
Do you think going down the hill is a metaphor for that rather sad phrase I just came up with about dealing
early
with
onset elderescence?
regret? I was thinking.
Regret. Sorry.
Because whilst I think these dilemmas are interesting, I don't want this podcast to be sort of fatalistic and sad, because I think retirement is a wonderful.
We should be reflecting and sharing our personal. But we do also have the intention of getting some people on, don't we, on the podcast?
We do.
People who have gone through various aspects of this. But no, continue with your regret.
No, I've done regret now. So I'm just saying, I think the regret's the hardest thing to deal with.
Okay.
So I think I'm encouraging people to make mistakes and go for stuff rather than regretting it.
All right.
So that will need to come out in the list at some point. And I think the hugely positive thing about going through the portal, I only say that because I like you rolling.
Keep talking about bloody portals, then we're going to fall out. Enough with the portals.
Is the opportunity. And in the Squid of Despair podcast, where we talked about transformation, it was all about change, resistance to change, and what the sort of the power of transformation was through technology. But I think this is similar. I think the opportunity for people when they stop work to embrace new realities, to learn new skills, to discover new places, to make new friends, to reacquaint themselves with people that they haven't yet met. I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful time. But of course, as we know, any sort of transformation change can be very destabilizing, can be frightening, and often we're not equipped to deal with it. If you think about some of the things that perhaps we're going to embark upon as we stop work, we don't have the skills for it, don't have the experience for it. So the things that have helped us be successful in our working lives are not necessarily the things that are going to help us have a long and happy elderescence.
Well, there is, I think, on the way up again, we were talking a little bit about structure, and that's part of it, isn't it? If you have a job, if you're employed, there's a structure. Whether you're self-employed or you work for someone, there is some form of structure that allows you to work through the day, work through the week, work through the years. So that vaporizes when you move into non-work.
But then there's different sort of more metaphysical structures that are available to you, I think, when you're not working, when you're not driven by corporate timelines or business requirements or 9-to-5 type shifts. And a lot of religions talk about the harmony of aging and contentment. There are possibilities that of happiness, different flavors of happiness, I think, that are, I don't think, so accessible through work. But of course, that destabilizing loss of structure thing you talked about is the flip side of that coin. So I think it's absolutely fascinating. The possibilities are enormous, but I think the challenges are quite great, which is why we're doing this, isn't it? Because
it is, yes.
It feels like it's not something that I've certainly read much about, and it feels like it's a good opportunity to talk. The other thing I think we should just dip into occasionally is, obviously, when you stop work, one of the big definitions of that is you've stopped earning money. And so that represents a change in lifestyle for lots of people, where perhaps they're having to contemplate going without. There might be real hardships, or certainly having to reassess where they want to spend the money. And again, those sort of choices, I think, are new for people sometimes who perhaps have had well-paid jobs and have been in employment all their lives, which I think is just part of the transformation and decision-making, the tyranny of choice that people find themselves in when they're retired.
Yeah, well, if we reflect on our own lives, really, we've been very fortunate in the business we've been in. We've travelled a lot. We've enjoyed some great experiences through work travel, and
you shouldn't mention the hot tub, Peter.
Don't mind about hot tub, and eaten in some fantastic restaurants, and we've seen some amazing.
We've been very blessed. Yeah,
and, it's been a very blessed career in that way, and yes. To maintain that in retirement is, apart from a very small number of people.
Yes, but I offer you the Malvern Hills. I mean, how beautiful is this?
It's gorgeous.
We've walked up here. It hasn't cost us anything to come up here. We're sitting, chatting about, important topics to us, looking at this fantastic view across the Wales. That doesn't cost a thing. And it's sort of probably more fundamentally important than, you having the Bollinger in the hot tub. Oh, sorry.
We're not talking about that story. And to be fair, we did have to pay for the car park, but it was only £3, I think, wasn't it? It was quite cheap.
Yeah.
It's very good. I'd like to talk now, if I may, drag you out of your portal and just I want to talk to listeners about what we're aiming to do with this. So, the structure's going to be, you and I are going to go on some walks. We talked about 6 walks during the year, which will culminate towards the end of the year with the Northumbrian walk for Macmillan. So, we'll be looking for sponsors soon. But yes, that great walk, which will be one of the coastal walks we're going to do. But in between those 6 walks, where we'll discuss things and record, obviously, we are also going to reach out to a number of people to talk about some specific topics. So, I mean, already, you've touched on, someone was talking about, the challenge of care. In retirement. Someone else has reached out to us and talked to us about the fact that, it took a year to transition into a mental state of retirement. I think there are, there's also the consideration of the career breaks taken through, choices or non-choices, but certainly typically, women, they go through motherhood and it forces a career break. I think another one is, the kind of mix. If I think about my own relationship, my wife is younger than me, so when I finally reach that state of retirement, she's going to still be working. So, I think she's quite pleased with that, to be honest.
Delighted, I think. She is,
But there's two problems. There's the joint retirement and getting used to being with each other all the time, and then there is the split retirement where one's working and one's not working. So there's a whole series of topics, I think, that we can, we'd love to engage with people and just talk to them on a studio-based podcast episode. And just explore that. So please, if you have something like that, the website will be live. It will be called walkingintoretirement.com. You can reach out to us there. We'd love to engage in conversations and share as broader conversations around this topic as we can.
So going back to my weddings and marriage metaphor. So
I knew you could explain that eventually.
So we're not so much doing wedding planning, we're more doing marriage guidance. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
The couples thing is interesting because, we've all got friends that have retired, and I think couples have different expectations about retirement. And in many cases, one of the couples, is looking forward to spending more time with their other half, and the other half has a career or has got a passion that they want to continue to pursue, and actually that doesn't come to fruition in that way. So, as everyone's experience of retirement will be different, I think couples' experience of retirement, of each other retiring, it will be different. And I think, we'll get some couples up here on therapy. I think it would be.
I feel like we, if we're going to go to California, we're going to have like a kind of Elderescence community site or retreat or something like that.
I quite like the Elderescence Academy. I do like that idea.
Okay, absolutely.
I'm going to have to get a caftan, I think.
Shall we continue down the hill at this point?
What, metaphorically or literally?
In every way possible. Yes, and I think we can wrap things up when we get to the bottom of that very steep hill.
Very steep,
where there still are no donkeys. Right, here we are. We're back down in Malvern. There'll be traffic noises, etc. But I think I've enjoyed that. Thank you. Great walk.
I enjoyed it very much. It feels like we've got lots of topics to cover. It feels like we're still being introductory.
Yes, it's early days. But how about we reach out to our listeners? Hopefully they're going to grow in numbers over the time. But tell us what you think about Daz's new word, Elderescence. Tell us what you think. Can you come up with a better word? Because I'll be honest, Daz, it's not rolling off my tongue yet. But I need to use it a bit.
Yeah, I think that's right. You've got to give it some airtime. And it does broaden out the discussion a bit. I recognise that. But for me, I think it's a big topic and I think it needs a big word.
Okay.
So that's where that came from. I just have to say, we are standing by a sign by a pub called the Unicorn, and I'm rather enjoying this. And it's got 2 arrows. One arrow says massive effing hill, and the other arrow pointing the other way says nice pint. So I know which one I want.
We've done the hill. And on that bombshell, thanks very much, Daz.
Thanks, Peter. Bye.
You have been listening to Walking into Retirement, an unusual podcast about finding purpose, meaning and balance after a busy working life with David Ailing Smith and Peter Taylor. Find out more at www.walkingintoretirement.com, and why not share your own retirement stories with the hosts?